All right. This is the regular meeting of the Planning Commission for the City of Brisbane, Thursday, March 9th. Brisbane City Hall, 50 Park Place. Could we have a call to order? All right.
Yes. Commissioner Munir,
Here.
Commissioner Cunningham,
Present.
This is
Commissioner
the
Mackin.
regular meeting
Here.
of the Planning Commission
and
for
Chair Anderson.
the City of Brisbane, Present. Thursday, March 9th.
Note that for the record that our usual Chair Doe is absent tonight.
Could we have a call to order? All right.
Yes. Commissioner
All right,
Munir,
adoption of agenda.
Commissioner Cunningham.
Tonight we have two items.
Commissioner
Public hearing
Mackin.
of
Here.
219
And Chair
Tulare
Anderson.
Street, which will be
note that for
postponed.
the record that
we don't have a
our
quorum.
usual Chair Doe is
And a
absent.
public hearing
tonight.
for 3745 Bayshore Boulevard, the rezoning amendments. Two items.
Commissioner
Have a
Here.
motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
For the record that
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Hearing for consent calendar. Please note, items listed here as consent calendar items are considered routine and will be acted upon collectively by one motion, adopting the planning department's recommendation unless a member of the public, the commission, or its staff asks to remove an item to discuss it. Prior to the motion, the chairperson will ask if anyone wishes to remove an item from the consent calendar. So the first question is, does anyone want to remove one of these items from the consent calendar? Recommendation under. Okay, so now we have a question about adopting the consent calendar because there were only two commissioners present for, sorry, for these minutes, yes, in each case. And we could wait until Van Doe was back and then we'd have a theoretical about three.
let's do that.
Okay.
I think
Continue.
for the first item,
Present for.
both Doe
sorry, for these
and
minutes,
Vice
yes.
Chairperson Reinhardt were
in each
absent.
case.
So we are only three,
And
only
could wait
three of
until
us, and
Van Doe
Commissioner
was
Parker
back,
no
and then
longer.
we'd have a theoretical. Yeah,
Commissioner
you're right.
Rainbow.
So for the first one,
Let's do
There is
that.
no choice.
okay.
For the first item,
Yeah, myself and Commissioner Munir are the only remaining council members who were at that one. So should we adopt just the first and wait for
Yes,
Van Doe?
let's go ahead and do that. Good catch.
All right. So in that case, Commissioner Munir, would you like to make a motion to
yes,
approve?
make a motion to adopt it. I mean,
All right, and I will
adopt
second.
the action minutes of January 12, 2017.
Great, and I will second that.
Yes.
All in
Let's
favor?
go ahead and do that. Good catch.
Aye. All right, and we will postpone the approval of the draft action minutes from the meeting of 9 February until we have quorum.
The action minutes of January 12.
Oral communications, seeing no one present, we'll move on to written communications. I see that we have a postcard from Heart of San Mateo County about their annual fundraising event on Thursday, May 11th.
Did you get this one too?
I received that on a previous meeting.
Okay,
We
so
have
this is-
a
wasn't mine.
postcard from Heart of San Mateo County. All right, moving on to new business, item 2, public hearing of 3745 through 3795 Bayshore Boulevard and adjacent city and Caltrain right-of-way properties, zoning text and map amendments.
Oh, sorry.
All right, moving on to new
I think we
business,
should step
item
back
2.
and formally continue to
Oh, okay.
19 Tulare to the next meeting on the 23rd.
All right, do I need to take a vote on that or just mention
Yes.
again?
Better take a vote on that.
All right.
Do a, sorry.
All right, so could, since we
I
don't
think
have
we should
quorum,
step
could I
back
have a
and
motion
formally continue to 19
postpone
Tulare to
the
the next
hearing for
meeting on the
219 Tulare Street? Do I need to take the next vote on that or just
I make a motion to
mention
postpone
again?
the public
All
hearing
right.
on 219 Tulare Street.
All right, so could,
Second the
we
motion.
don't have quorum. In favor?
Aye.
Formally continue.
All right, so moved. Now moving on to the public hearing of the zoning text and map amendments for RZ 316 for the properties of 3745 through 3795 Bayshore Boulevard.
Second the motion.
Do we have a staff report?
Aye.
Yes.
All right, so moved. Now moving on to the public hearing of the zoning text and map amendments for RZ 316 for the properties of 3745 through 3795 Bayshore Boulevard.
Second the motion.
Do we have a staff report?
The application before the commission tonight is to provide for zoning that's consistent with the general plan You all may recall that the commission held a study session in January to discuss the M1 manufacturing zoning. Two of the commissioners weren't there, but I know you've had that study session tonight. Is to provide for zoning that's most of that discussion in January was on the northwest Bayshore sub-area, which staff is planning to bring back for a second study session at your next meeting this month. In January, we also briefly discussed the southeast Bayshore sub-area. And tonight the focus is on the M1 district within the southeast Bayshore sub-area, as well as on open space designated area that's located across the street at the southern end of the southwest Bayshore sub-area. But it's zoned M1 also, and that's inconsistent with the general plan, the southeast Bayshore sub-area, as well as to accomplish the needed consistency with the general plan in the southern Bayshore sub-areas. The amendments that are before you tonight would, first of all, add Chapter 17.21 to create the TC2. To accomplish the needed consistency with the general plan in the southern Bayshore sub-areas, the amendments that are before you tonight would, first of all, so it would add Chapter 17.21 to create the TC2 Southeast Bayshore Trade Commercial District. It would also amend the city's zoning map in a couple ways. It would rezone the properties within the Southeast Bayshore Trade Commercial sub-area from M1 manufacturing to trade commercial to be regulated under the new Chapter 17.21. The zoning map would also be amended to rezone the city right-of-way that's located along the west side of Bayshore Boulevard from M1 manufacturing to OS open space.
Is that right-of-way also city-owned, or is it
The zoning map would
local
also
land,
be
or what is
amended to
the
rezone.
status?
It is city-owned. So on this map here shows that right-of-way slice, and it's actually not a separate parcel. It kind of appears that way because I outlined it in red, but it's not a mapped parcel. It is actually part of the right-of-way. So you go back to the subdivision map for the city, and it just shows this as though it were a wide spot in the road, but it's actually the cliff face where the road cut is, and then up the hill from that, the right of way. So those are the two areas that we're talking about tonight with this draft ordinance. Or a wide spot in the road, but it's actually the cliff face where you. By way of background, in 2015, City Council adopted Ordinance number 599 to amend permitted and conditional uses allowed in the M1 manufacturing district. Council also adopted a companion resolution of intent that the M1 zoning district be renamed for consistent terminology with the general plan. As we discussed in the study session in January, the M1 zoning includes physically separated general plan sub-areas with different geographic characteristics and land use patterns. Given these differences, the draft ordinance before you now is specific to the southern Bayshore areas. Physically separated. General plan sub-areas. It's noteworthy that the uses in Southeast Bayshore are already consistent with the general plan designated uses. This was demonstrated in City Council adoption of the ordinance in 2015, which amended those permitted and conditional uses for the M1 district. So at this time, and this point in time, a change in name is simply needed from manufacturing to trade commercial for consistency with the general plan. As I mentioned, there is also an area that's designated open space in the general plan, but is also zoned M1, so that M1 zoning just carries across the roadway, and the city doesn't usually consider right-of-way as zoning. We're really not subject to it, but because the general plan in this case designated that specific area as open space, we want to be consistent with that without going back through a general plan. Consider right-of-way as as zoning, we're not subject to it, but because so again, the approach to these amendments is to add a new Municipal Code Chapter 17.21 to create the TC Southeast Bayshore Trade Commercial District. The zoning text for this is modeled on the M1 district. That says Chapter 1720. Additionally, medical cannabis uses have been added. That's assuming council adoption of the draft medical cannabis ordinance. That's going to be going forward to them within, I believe it's the next month or two. If they choose not to adopt that little piece can be taken out by council at the time that it reaches them. Should you carry forward with the recommendation on that one. The ordinance would amend the official zoning map to rezone properties within the southeast Bayshore Trade Commercial sub-area from M1 manufacturing to TC2 trade commercial. And it would also amend the zoning map to rezone the city right-of-way property from M1 to OS open space, and there's already a zoning district for open space. Also, as a note for those M1 district areas that are outside the southern Bayshore subject areas, the existing municipal code, Chapter 1720, would remain effective pending future action by the city on those areas. And closing, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt Resolution RZ 316, which provides a recommendation to City Council to adopt the draft ordinance. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them. In closing, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt Resolution RZ 316, which provides a recommendation to City Council to adopt the draft ordinance. I'm sorry, I'm not sure if your mic is...
Mic is on, actually.
All right.
What I was asking is the last meeting we had this topic, we discussed the area that was on the other side of the Caltrain station. This is not the same, is it? Where the Industrial Boulevard.
The other side of the Caltrain. Are you talking about the northern Bayshore?
Towards the sledge factory. That area we discussed in the last meeting. I don't think we discussed this.
Right. So we mentioned it briefly. There was not a lot of discussion since this is a fairly straightforward. Essentially, the main thing is to change the name, but we're not really looking to change the uses except for this new thing that's come up with medical cannabis. The other sub-areas to the north, we're actually going to be coming back to Planning Commission at the next meeting with another study session for the northwest Bayshore sub-area. The northeast Bayshore sub-area will continue to be handled through the Bailey. We're actually going to be coming back to Planning Commission at the next meeting with another study session. This will be TC2. What we're looking at for the north is the direction the Planning Commission gave, and we'll talk about this more in the next meeting, but is the technology park, potentially connecting that with Crocker Park, given its similar nature. And then the central area of northwest Bayshore, which would be the Levinson and Peking handicraft sites, would retain PD zoning, and we were looking at teasing apart the specific plan requirements for that. And then the far north end, where PG&E and 7 Mile House, we were looking at a commercial public utilities zoning. So essentially splitting that up into 3 potential zoning districts. But again, it's not really the subject for tonight, but it'll be coming to you soon. We're looking at a commercial public utilities zoning. So essentially splitting that up into 3. So the TC2 is the new district that we're talking about here for Southeast Bayshore. In it, trade commercial in the general plan has essentially this umbrella of uses that were applicable to the M1 but they're also, so that's the trade commercial and the M1, the uses under those names were essentially the same. So there was a general plan consistency that City Council recognized when they adopted the ordinance in 2015. So we're not looking to change those, but it's just a simple change in name from M1 to TC2.
So it will be same consistency.
It's very similar to M1. There's some little differences, well, some of not so little. For instance, the freight forwarding is allowed in the M1 by right, whereas it's by use permit and TC1. So there are some significant differences.
Would that be
Well, some of not so little. For instance, no housing.
Okay, I wanted to clarify that because
Yeah,
there
the
was some concern
freight forwarding is
regarding
allowed in the
TC2
M1
being
by right, whereas it's by use
to
permit.
housing also.
Right, so the uses, except for medical cannabis, did not change from N1. We just took that chapter, copied it over, and added medical cannabis for permitted uses and then for conditional uses. And we can find that if you'd like in the staff report, but it's consistent with what was brought to Planning Commission just recently with the ordinance on medical cannabis.
And we're going to continue to
permitted
wait on
uses
the
and then
Baylands
for
portion of
conditional uses. We'll wait on the Baylands on the north end until after, and then the northwest we'll look at next meeting in the study session. Planning Commission just recently with the ordinance on medical cannabis.
I'd like to ask a question, not to put you on the spot, Ken, but the property, there's, looks like two properties uphill from the open space designated area as the district. Are those developed properties?
They are vacant, actually.
Not to put you on the spot, Ken,
And
but the
there's
property,
the furthest house that you see, it's a fairly recent house, I think built around 2000, I want to say roughly. That's a few parcels up from this open space, but the presence of open space will not inhibit, doesn't take any development rights away from those adjacent properties.
and those two properties are both privately owned?
That's correct. That's a
Thank you.
few parcels up from this open space, but the presence of
When
open
this
space
was on
will
the
not
agenda for a
inhibit,
couple of weeks ago,
doesn't take any development
I had
rights away
written
from
and
those
asked if she
adjacent
received any
properties.
public comment
And those two
on
properties are both
this
privately owned?
at
That's
all,
right.
and at that time, the answer was no, nobody had commented. Everybody had been noticed. My other, well, did we get any more comments in the last 2 weeks?
Nothing's come in, no.
Okay, and just so it's on the record that I've asked the question, how, if any, does this affect property use and property values of the people who are in these areas, except for the
Nothing's
use
come
for
in.
freight forwarding not being allowed? Is there any other affectation on property values or property uses?
Well, there's no change in the use, so I mentioned freight forwarding as an example of difference between the TC1 Crocker Park and this district. But there's no change in that. The only change is to add medical marijuana as potential uses, so it doesn't take anything away from those property owners. If anything, it adds future flexibility with tenants to potentially have a broader field of tenants. The only change is to add
I don't have any
medical marijuana as potential uses, so it doesn't take anything away from those property owners. If anything, it adds future flexibility with tenants to potentially have a broader field of tenants.
Update to create like a matrix and show the columns what the existing zoning designation is from the general plan calls for it, what's the proposed, and what are the changes, if there is any, that will be put in the new.
You mean moving forward with the other portions?
Because that will apply to all of those. So you can have like a matrix and different columns in there. Start with the sub-area name, then we will say what is the existing one, which will be M1, support
You
the
mean
general plan
moving
calls
forward with
for
the other
was to
portions?
propose, which will be TC2.
I don't want to steal thunder. Ken has a workshop on these other areas that are M1 zone, 'cause each one is very different, so he'll basically provide that information.
Because that way, anybody is looking at it, just pick up that, metrics and they can look at it, whether a southeast
I don't want to
area,
steal thunder. Ken
northeast
has a
area,
workshop
whatever,
on
and
these other
Sure, we
areas
can do
that are
that.
M1 zone.
We'll
Each
have
one is
less-
very
less of,
different, so
confusion.
he'll basically provide that information.
Because that way, anybody is looking at it, just pick up that, metrics and they can look at it, whether a southeast
I don't want to
area,
steal thunder. Ken has a
area,
workshop on these other areas
Sure, we can do
that are
that.
M1 zone. Each one is
So
very
if
different.
there's other questions, I'm happy to take them, but otherwise I'd formally open and close the public hearing and then
All right.
go from there.
Could we have a motion to open our public hearing?
Make a motion to open the public hearing.
So if there's other
All in
questions, I'm
favor?
happy to take
Aye.
them, but otherwise I'd formally
no one
open
present,
and
could I have a
close
motion
the
to
public
close the
hearing.
public-
and then-
I'll make a motion to close
All
the
right,
public hearing.
very good.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Open our public hearing.
Make a motion to open the public.
All right.
So if
We've
there's
already
other
asked our questions,
I'm
and
happy to
Aye.
take
any
them, but otherwise I'd
further need
formally
to
open
discuss,
and
have a
close
motion
the
to
public
close
hearing.
anything about
Make a
this?
motion. I think I've
good.
sort of just said what I wanted
in
to say.
favor?
so-
Aye.
All right. Thank you very much. I
So,
think you're,
do we have to make a motion to adopt that, or, yeah?
all right.
um,
All right, could I have a motion to
Okay,
ask
I'll go
the
ahead and make a
questions
motion to make a zoning text
further need
amendment
to
of
discuss
RC dash 3-16.
about this,
I'll second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
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 And just a point of clarification, so that's a recommendation to city council?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. To approve the recommendation.
Go ahead and make a motion to make a zoning
No,
text
what the right terminology is.
dash 3-16.
Right there. I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 And just a point of clarification, so that's a
I was too
recommendation
lazy
to
to
city
read the
council?
whole
To adopt resolution.
description.
To approve the recommendation, which provides the recommendation. Okay, very good. So do we have any items initiated by staff tonight?
Just the, again, the Baylands
Clarification, so
public
that's a
hearings continue, and there's another one next
To
week.
adopt it.
And I think that's the only item. Was there any items that they
Do we have
approved?
any items initiated by staff
There's nothing
tonight?
really to report. I think that's it. Just the Baylands hearings are continuing, and just the, again, the Baylands public hearings
Does
continue.
anyone
and
have
there's
any
another one
items
next
initiated
week.
by the commission?
And I think that's the
First of
only
all, I
item.
would
Was
like
there any
to
items that they
welcome
approved?
two new commissioners, one returning commissioners.
I think that's
and
it.
I'm
Just
very
the
happy
Baylands
to
hearings are
see
continuing,
that.
and just the, again, the Baylands
And
public hearings
Does
hopefully
continue.
anyone
we will
have
work
any
together
items
as a
initiated
team
by the
like we
commission?
did always.
First of all,
I would like to welcome, other than that, I don't have anything else.
I think that's it. Just the Baylands
I have a
hearings
question for
continuing.
staff.
Just the,
Is there anything coming up anytime soon regarding parking in Brisbane, generally?
No, there was a parking
Is
ordinance
there
revision that the
Anything coming up
commission worked
anytime
on
soon regarding
2 years ago or so, that was actually just approved by the council, I believe, early last year, related to parking for single-family residences, but not aware of any other proposals to modify parking standards.
And are you familiar with the
or so, that was
accessory
actually just
dwelling
approved by
unit
the council, I
Yes.
believe,
that came
early
through here recently?
Yes.
last year,
Actually, I want to mention a couple
related
more
to
things.
parking for single-family residences, but not aware of any other proposals to modify parking
I
standards.
like to,
And are
in
familiar
the
with
past,
the,
if the
uh,
commissioners
accessory
left,
dwelling
we
unit?
used to have a little thing for them to come back and thank them for their services. So I think we should do that with Commissioner Reinhardt and Commissioner Parker,
Not aware of any other.
because since they served for almost, 4 years. And,
Absolutely. Well, we were actually just discussing when we can agendize them
Yeah.
and when they're going to be
that would
available.
be a good gesture. And another thing I was looking at is there was a planning, I think it's the
Absolutely.
last-
Well, we were
last
actually
meeting
just
you-
discussing when we can
meeting before we
agendize
discussed
them
about,
and when they're going to be
it was
available.
on March 3rd, that there was a planning academy. And I wanted to know whether the new commissioners were able to get in.
Well, again, unfortunately, due to the timing of the appointments, that actually the academy enrollment was closed by the time we were able to coordinate everything. So unfortunately, none of the new commissioners were able to attend this year. We'll certainly make sure they are available and notified next year. And if any opportunities come up in the northern region in the near term, we'll go ahead and pass those on as well. By the time we were able to coordinate everything. So unfortunately, none of the new commissioners were able to attend
Anything else?
this year. We'll certainly
All right.
make sure they're available.
Selection of planning
and
commissioner
notified
officers.
next
Last
year. And if any
meeting, we had
opportunities come
decided
up in
that
the
we wanted to
northern,
postpone that until
region,
all members were
in the near
present.
term, we'll go ahead and
Does
pass
everyone
those on.
still
By the time we were able to
feel
coordinate
the same way? Any discussion about
Unfortunately, none
that?
of the new commissioners were able
I think we can wait.
this
All right.
year.
Could I have a motion to postpone the selection of planning commissioner officers until the next meeting?
Last meeting, we had
I make a
decided
motion
that
to postpone the
we'll
positions of the planning commissioners till the next meeting of March. I think we can wait.
I think it's all right. Could I have a motion to postpone?
23rd.
Thank you, 23rd.
I second the motion.
I make a motion.
All in favor? Aye.
Postpone
All right.
the
That's
positions
a
of the
wrap.
planning commissioners till the next meeting
Should I read
of
the appeals
March.
process even though there's no one here? No? Okay. Let's adjourn then. Can I have a
23rd.
motion
Thank you,
to
23rd.
adjourn until the regular meeting of March
I second the
23rd?
motion. I make a motion to adjourn to the next regular meeting
All
of
right,
March
that's
23rd.
a wrap.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Process even though there's no one here? No? Okay. Let's adjourn then. Can I have a motion to adjourn until the regular meeting of March
I second
23rd?